to call to order the meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission on Wednesday, November 1st, 2023 at the Don B. Griffin Room at Harwich Town Hall. This is a hybrid meeting. The public may attend in person or can watch on the Harwich channel on their cable TV, or log in to participate remotely. Instructions for logging in are available on the agenda, which can be found on the Harwich Conservation Department website. So we're going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So the first item on the agenda is a request for an amended order of conditions for 39 Mill Road, previously 2 Brora Drive, map 15, parcel V1-3, SE 32-2465, for the addition of Vista Corridor Management.
Hi there, I'm Matt Lautenberger. I work for Wilkinson Ecological, and I'm here on behalf of our applicant, James Kadar. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a quick look at this amendment. It's a pretty simple plan. Really, the only reason there wasn't a view corridor on the previous time that they came before you is because this house hadn't been built yet, so couldn't really do a view corridor. Now that the house has been built, James has asked us to sort of figure out a view management plan for him. What we've done here manages to save most of the trees in the area. There's just 3 smallish sassafras right on the bank there that we'd be taking out, in addition to, I believe, one that's already dead. Yep, one very small pitch pine sapling. So it is still live, just a sapling. And then replaced with 4 bayberry and then 3 serviceberry outside of the view corridor. The canopy is going to remain completely unchanged by this. It's already got very well-established trees on site that are going to be shading the whole corridor anyway. So we did put a note on here about pruning some of the larger shrubs to around 4 feet, but that's going to be something that only needs to be done intermittently because of how much shade is already in the area. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about it.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
So we permitted the construction of the single-family home in 2021 on what was a vacant lot. The permit is valid until July 24. As an addition, they would like a 1-year extension to this permit, which we have prepared as well, just to give the plants that they are planting and have planted already a little bit more time to establish, and for us to view the view corridor as well once it's been done. So under that old permit, the other permit, they had invasive removal. They did remove a couple of trees, mostly dead or ones that were very hazardous to the new home, and did some minor pruning. I kept an eye on it, and recently did a site visit with Matt, and everything appears to be in order. At that time, we looked, since the house was built, and the owners could kind of pick where in their living space or outdoor space would be most opportune to have a view corridor, to propose one. We also made sure that it was in an area where the least amount of work had to be done in order to achieve a peak view of the marsh, and very minimal work needs to be done here in this. It is a true corridor. I don't know how wide it is, probably 50 feet or so, if not, maybe even less, but roughly I would say. Couple of very young sassafras at the marsh edge to be removed. There's also high tide bush there, but that's not proposed to be touched. A pitch pine, a couple of things to be removed and then transplanted, like the serviceberry, a couple of bayberry brought in, and there's some sweet pepper that's growing naturally, and it's not even at the 4-foot height yet for the most part, but they would like to, it can get, 6-7 feet tall, so they'd like to be able to do, and I would recommend just a lateral pruning technique to maintain that. But it abides by our regulations for pruning a view corridor, very selective removals, pruning shrubs to a 4-ish foot height, and removing some limbs from trees to kind of get a peak view through the vegetation rather than clearing it. So I would recommend I would recommend you approve the amendment and grant them a 1-year extension.
Thank you. So do we have questions or comments? Wayne?
No comment.
No comment, Mark?
No.
I have nothing either. Anyone in the public here have any comments? Hearing none, we have a motion.
Yes, I'll move that we close the public hearing and approve the amended order of conditions and a 1-year extension to that order of conditions for 39 Mill Road, previously 2 Bora Drive, map 15, parcel V1-3, SE 32-2465.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
There's 2 there, Wayne. There's 2 sheets there. We'll have that to you shortly.
Next, we have a notice of intent for 49 Sequatum Road, map 101, parcel T2-2 and T2-1, SE 32-2543 for proposed dock replacement with boat lift, bench, and kayak rack within the waters of Long Pond.
Yes, good evening. My name's Matt Farrell. I'll be representing David and Mary Ann Schubert. Yeah, at the last meeting, we kind of went through the proposal. It's a replacement dock in the same location with a boat lift and a bench and a cantilevered kayak rack. So we continued because we hadn't heard from Natural Heritage. Well, we've heard back from Natural Heritage and basically a no-take for any endangered species. Be more than happy to answer any questions anybody has.
No questions. The no-take letter had no recommended conditions, anything like that, so. I would recommend approval that the off-season storage of the dock and the boat lift be outside the wetland resource area and the 50-foot buffer zone.
Mark?
No remarks.
Jim?
No comment.
Alan? No comment. Wayne?
No comment.
No comment from me. Anybody care to make a motion?
Okay, I will move that we approve the notice of intent for 47 Susquantum Road, map 101, parcel T2-2 and T2-1, SE 32-2543, with the condition that the off-season storage be beyond the resource area and beyond the 50-foot no-build zone.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have a notice of intent for 47 Vacation Lane, map 72, parcel L 289, SE 32-2544 for pruning of vegetation for access to and view of the pond. Do we have a representative here?
No, remember, we had instructed Mr. Habercorn that that was the only thing outstanding, so he didn't need to come. So we received a no-take letter, so I told him he didn't need to come, and no, the project would not have any impact on any state-listed species. I would recommend approval with the condition that Mr. Habercorn remove the pile of cut debris and trash from the buffer zone and dispose of properly, and to work with me to identify additional small saplings to cut. Also, no fertilizers or chemicals within our jurisdiction.
Okay, do we have any further discussion here? Any comments?
No, not for me.
No
Okay.
comment.
Sounds like nothing. Ready for a motion?
Okay, I'll move that we approve the notice of intent, 47 Vacation Lane, map 72, parcel I-289, SE 32-2544, with the condition that the pile of debris be removed and all trash be removed within the buffer zone, and that he work with our conservation agent on any further trimming.
Second.
Okay, I just have one comment that it's parcel L-289, not I-289.
Okay, I apologize. I'll accept that amendment to my
Okay.
motion.
As well.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Next, we have a notice of intent for 4 Chase Street, map 4, parcel N3-B, SE 32-2542, for replacement of dock and float in the same footprint.
Good evening, Roy Okarowski from WRS Engineering. I'm representing David Torgny from 4 Chase Street to replace an existing licensed permitted dock and float. We performed an on-the-ground survey and at the, which is shown in the plan, and at the client's request, he's looking to replace the dock with a monopile dock similar to a 20 Chase and the one next to that. So we're eliminating probably like 10 piles. I think we're gonna have 3 or 4 piles in there, which will be composite pilings. The float and the area is in sufficient water right now, which has 3 feet at low tide. So there's no proposing to move that. We're putting the access stairs back in as is. And, you know, as far as how we're gonna do it, we're gonna come in by a barge, we're gonna pull all the above pilings. That was a seasonal dock before, so there's all those at-grade pilings. We're proposing to leave those in the ground because it will cause more disturbance to the marsh, to pull those out. And those are at a point of rotting right now, so we suspect that they'll be non-existent soon. All the debris from the construction will be pulled off and put on a barge. Then we'll drive approximately 2 piles as there is on the outside, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 monopiles, which will be a 12-inch diameter. We can reach all but one of them from the water, and that pile that's in the marsh and the 2 anchor piles at the beginning will be driven. We're going to set up, the contractor's going to set up a big tripod with a hammer on it, and he's able to drive them. He's done the same thing on 2 other piers right down the way, because CJR Atlantic is going to be the contractor. And we feel that it'll be a good project. You know, basically licensed already. We're not proposing any changes in footprint or anything like that, and I can answer any questions at this point.
Thank you. Amy?
All right, So this is an improvement over what's existing, and what is existing is licensed and permitted. They're reducing the number of piles by the piles in the center, particularly in the marsh, going to a monopile. It's going to be raised up a little bit. I just took another look, and on the landward side, it's 5 feet roughly between the ground and the bottommost structural member, but as you start going out over the marsh, it's 6 feet, which meets our 1.5 to 1 ratio that we like to see for height versus width over salt marsh. Roy, what was your spacing on the decking?
It's noted at,
I didn't see that. I'm sure it's here, I just didn't, 3/4, I got it.
found it.
So 3/4, which is what we require. Talk about off-season storage, would have to be of the gangway and float would have to be not in the resource, not in the 50-foot
Right.
buffer zone.
It's gonna get taken care of by a contractor.
I think you see it now, like, the end is missing, so they must
They pulled it.
take it and store it somewhere, because I didn't even see it on the property. So let me see, I don't think I have, so the float is gonna be in 3.5 feet of water, at least at the seaward edge at mean low water, but not at the landward edge. Don't wanna go out any farther, we don't wanna do any dredging, so my recommendation would be that you condition that boats are tied up on the seaward edge and not on the landward edge. If this was a new structure, we would require at least 3 feet at mean low water around all parts of the float. Again, this doesn't have it on the landward edge, but I think there's a lot of other improvements, again, to a licensed structure. So with that condition, I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Wayne?
No, I don't have anything.
Alan?
Pretty simple.
No further
Jim?
comments.
I have a couple comments. One is on site visit. There's a cedar which very clearly has been topped, right on the bank, which, I don't know what is to be done about that now, but it's definitely not a good thing. I don't know with a cedar like that, it looks like it's still alive, but it's like,
Yeah,
it's a, you know,
I forgot about that.
fairly substantial cedar there. I mean, I don't know what that is. It's like, I would say where it was topped is, it's only 2 feet tall,
Mm,
probably several feet taken off of it.
mm.
Probably a volunteer, right?
It
Probably
could,
not
yeah,
planted there.
probably not planted. It's something that we could address with the owner themselves in terms of, I could write them a letter. I also did not have a chance to check on that shed, so
That's right.
there's also a shed there that I'm not sure was there the last time I've been out to the property.
The owner, I identified to him also about the shed.
Yeah,
And he knows about it, so, and he's a real upfront, honest,
yeah,
good guy, so, he said if any of these items come up, so be it, and we'll we'd like
Yeah.
to handle them separately.
that's,
you know.
my recommendation is we handle it separately,
He's not trying to hide anything.
yeah.
so.
So-
I had been out to the site, it was probably 10 years ago, to the site, and I know the shed's been there since, or hasn't been there, wasn't there then, so I'd recommend we deal with it separately and contact Mr. Torigny about the trimming and the shed.
Right, and my only other comment is about the lawn, and the lawn on the water side of the house is very much a Cape Cod lawn. But I think there's a little bit of a retaining wall separating the front yard from the backyard.
Mhm.
Front grass looks like it's manicured and maintained with probably herbicides and fertilizers. The regs say nothing no such thing as within 100 feet. I don't know where that is, but I would just strongly encourage the owner to consider a different way of maintaining his lawn, not using fertilizers or herbicides, and moving toward a more Cape Cod lawn, or finding someone who will maintain the lawn using other more organic approaches, not encouraging organic fertilizers, but just other ways of maintaining a nice lawn. That's all.
We can address that too
Yeah.
in the letter. But yes, and it's, I mean, you want to get technical about it, the resource area is 200 feet, because
Oh, it's
the
a river.
riverfront is actually
So that whole
200
thing- so-
feet. But we can certainly address that with Mr. Tourigny.
Can you please put in the letter what level of permitting you want him? I don't know if you can do that or not, in order to resolve his issues, if it's
Yep.
admin, RDA, or,
It depends, we have to measure where the shed is.
yeah.
In terms, if the shed is in the 50-foot no
it's in the
disturb,
50.
then the shed will likely have to be moved.
Okay, yeah.
And it wouldn't be permitted there. But I can work with him to find another
Okay.
location
Thank
and work with him through the process.
Okay, any other comments, discussion from anybody? Hearing none?
Okay, I'll move that we approve the notice of intent for 4 Chase Street, map 4, parcel N3-B, SE 32-2542, with the condition that boats be tied up on the seaward edge of the float, and that in off-season storage of the gangway and the float not be in the resource area or within the 50-foot buffer.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
you.
Good night.
So next we have notice of intent for 9 and 11 Herring Run, map 3, parcels X3-2 and X3-3 for the construction of a new shared dock with float and dredging.
Mr. Chair, they've requested a continuance to 11/15 to address some of the comments I had, and to also provide a mitigation plan.
Okay. We have a motion for a continuance.
Sure. I'll move that we continue the public hearing on 9 and 11 Herring Run, map 3, parcels X3-2 and X3-3 to our meeting of November 15th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So, next is a notice of intent for Off Dunes Road, map 5, parcel Y1, SE 32-2545 for the reconstruction of a pedestrian pathway for beach access, including boardwalk and seasonal Moby maps.
Nothing without pictures.
Thank you.
A couple have been down there with, as well, so that's good. Thank you.
Good evening. Arlene Wilson, A.M. Wilson Associates, here for the Allen's Harbor Beach Association. This project, it is to reconstruct and modify an existing beach access. The beach services 67 families. It's accessed by 2 5-foot wide paths that run down to the wider beach. We're working on the westernmost of these 2 access ways. In 2002, the commission granted the association permission to construct and reconstruct portions of the boardwalk that's in place now. The landward portion is 36 inches wide, and the seaward portion was supposed to be 30 inches wide. The boardwalk was constructed of Trex materials, and it received a certificate of compliance. The purpose of the current project is to maintain and reconstruct the access, as I said, to make it handicapped accessible. We're all getting older, and some of us are getting mobility problems, and it's difficult for people to use that walkway and cross the dunes as the access exists now. What we're proposing is to install 3 different types of surfacing, depending on the area in which the surface is going to be installed. On the upland side, and some of those pictures show the access as you come off the road and walk down between the 2 stockade fences that outline the 5-foot path now. In that area where it's totally upland, we're proposing to install a fiberglass grid surface. This is material that was first developed in World War II and used for portable landing areas, particularly in desert locations. Since then, it's been used quite successfully in boardwalks and walkways. The state uses it in areas in southeast Massachusetts. We've used it for portions of piers that cross salt marshes where there's insufficient height above the marsh, because the square grid gives about 85% light penetration and allows the grass to grow underneath it. Here, we're proposing to level the surface, which has now got some divots in it from heavy pedestrian use. So it'll be flat across the width of the walkway. The material is 1 inch in depth. You kind of nestle it into the leveled sediment, fill the remaining area of that 1 inch depth with topsoil and seed it. The picture that we included in the notice of intent shows an installation that's in Katuitt, where we've used it in the salt marsh so that people can bring their rowboats and pull their rowboat up into the back beach. And you can see that the salt marsh grows right up through this stuff pretty well. The idea is that since the root mat of the grass is protected from the weight of pedestrians walking on it and the sheer strength of people pushing against the sediment, the grass continues to grow through it. It does a couple of other things. Because it protects the root mat, it continues to allow for percolation, so the soil doesn't get compressed the way it does with a lot of people walking on it or using a wheelchair on it or a cart. That ensures that we don't get puddling in the path, which is what happens up near the road now, And the puddling not only kills the vegetation in the path, but forces people to walk on property that isn't part of the beach association access, so the neighbors get upset. This will ensure that those things don't happen. People will stay on the path. We won't get the erosion and sedimentation that comes with precipitation being focused in those little gullies that form. And that's particularly important where the upland path meets the top of the coastal bank. So you don't get erosion at the top of the bank, either from pedestrian wear or from runoff. The material is completely inert, so that we don't expect any pollution problem from it either. On the bank itself, and then further down in the back dunes, the dune field, we are proposing to sort of install a new Trex surface using the old Trex surface as the support system. So we don't need to drive new supports, and that Trex surface can be made non-skid on the slope, so that either someone in a wheelchair or little kids or somebody like me who just has terrible balance problems now doesn't slip and fall. We are proposing that the Trex surface be wider than the existing. The existing on the bank is 36 inches wide. It's 30 inches where you get to the bottom and it levels out. We are proposing 48 inches. That's the minimum width of a path that's ADA accessible. So the handicap wheelchair has a wheelbase of 36 inches. The steering on those things is not perfect, so you want to have a few inches on each side so they're not driving off the edge. There also, we proposed stanchions so that there can be a rope handrail on one side of this thing to steady people and to help keep them on the boardwalk as well. Because we've got a really a wide base for this stuff, we can move the new surface a little bit off center if we need to avoid some existing important vegetation, any of the shrubs for sure, so that we can curve it around a little bit to get around those things. The existing permanent boardwalk extends almost to the toe of the back toe of the primary dune. The pictures also show that. So this overlay will go all the way to that point. And then you may recall we were in earlier in the year to get permission for some temporary Moby mats from the end of the Trex surface across the primary dune to the extreme high water mark, which is about elevation 5. Those seem to have worked very well. They've been taken up now for the season. And in that area, we would propose more Moby mats to be installed seasonally and taken back up. That's an area where it's more important, I think, to allow the dunes some recovery in the winter, or to be able to move with winter storms and winds. Putting a permanent structure in that area is problematic just from a construction point of view. It's likely that the dune would either move out from underneath part of it or bury it which is what's happened in the last few years with the end of the old Trek surface. So replacing that with Moby mats in season conforms with the regulations for protecting dunes, while during the season it prevents the foot traffic from cutting down significantly the way it has in the past. It was suggested that we might look at replacing the entirety of the boardwalk with Moby mats. Personally, I do not think that that's advisable for a number of reasons. On the slope, the mats aren't particularly stable. The pressure from foot traffic or a wheelchair or a cart would tend to move it both laterally and horizontally because of the sediments underneath are very soft. The weight of a lot of traffic on it will still tend to make divots underneath it, and so the edges come up, which is a problem in the dune field. The dunes there, as I think you know, are mapped by Mass Natural Heritage for plovers and other shorebirds, and you don't want to have that piece sticking up where the plover might actually run underneath it and get stuck. In addition to that, there's a significant cost associated with installation of those mats. We apparently just got an estimate that resulted in the volunteers from the association dealing with the existing mats themselves to take them up this year. The 24 feet worth of mats that are there, they got an estimate of about $1,000 to take them up and put them back. It would be a 226-foot run to run them through the whole system. So they'd be looking at almost $9,500 every time they had to deal with those mats. And also because the amount of mat would require a big space to warehouse them for the winter, whereas the few that we use now can go in somebody's garage. We're still proposing, the mats as they are, and there's one other use of Moby mats that we are suggesting, and that is to put a small area adjacent to the existing bench for people to put their shoes on and backpacks and whatever they're not going to drag all the way down to the beach. You can see from those pictures, and those pictures were in May of this year, so it's pretty early in the season. People have a tendency to dump their shoes before they get to that primary dune. The problem with that is that they get off the path, put the stuff in an area that's vegetated now, and scuff up a wider area than just the boardwalk width. We thought that providing them with a storage area where they could put those things would help to contain the miscellaneous impacts of having just a lot of people using the boardwalk. But the potential for vegetative mitigation has also come up. I think your regulations generally allow a 4-foot path for people to use to get to the water. That 4-foot path is for a single-family homeowner. Here we've got 67 families, and so we're asking, for that 4-foot width, although it's structural, and a 5-foot width for the Moby mats. Mass Natural Heritage, in my experience, is not real happy about adding vegetation in areas that they've mapped for plover or other bird habitat. I tried getting a hold of Emily Holt today to see if I could get something verbal from her, but I couldn't get a call back. And we have not got a response for their review of the project yet. If Emily is willing to allow us to put vegetation in, then we'd be happy to work with Amy to develop a planting plan for the, I think, about 350 square feet that would require mitigation. Otherwise, I know that your regulations allow for the payment of an in lieu fee. Considering what this use is and the purpose of the work, which is handicapped access, we would hope that you would see fit to allow us a variance from that, but if not, an in lieu fee is probably the solution. And I'd be happy to get any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we do not have any determination from Heritage, so I recommend we don't vote on this tonight and ultimately continue for that. I understand your predicament here, and I understand the 67 families. It's an association beach or 2 access points for 67 families, so I understand that, and I understand wanting to make sure that it's safe for everybody to get down, while also trying to minimize disturbance. One question, in your notice of intent on the project description, it says 100 square feet of stabilizing grid, but if I look at the landward edge, it's got to be over 500 because it's 5 feet wide by at least over 100 feet long. By about 125 feet long.
Yeah, that's clearly a.
I just
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
make sure I was not reading it incorrectly, that's
No,
all.
We'll get you a correction on that.
Okay. I'm curious how you think, so I've seen that type of installation, and it is in your packets, of this fiberglass mesh type material. It's actually it's probably less substantial than I recommended it being, or I remembered it being. So it's whether the commission, views that it's an alteration, but whether you view it as a structural component or not, or just kind of almost like a mesh matting. It's a mix between.
Yeah, it's rigid.
It's rigid, but it's not.
Mesh is usually flexible.
I was initially thinking it was almost going to be like grass pave, where it's more substantial, and this isn't so much. I'm curious how, in a somewhat shady situation, without being maintained, how you expect the grass to grow, even with the top, and stay there, even with the topsoil, everything needs at least a little bit of water to get it going.
Initially, it'll probably need some hand watering.
Hand
until
watering.
it sprouts.
Okay.
But after that, the grass mix that we hope to select, which would be heavy on path rush,
Yeah.
will grow in pretty substantial shade and not require much maintenance at all.
Okay.
Certainly no fertilizer.
Eventually, if we do approve this or iteration of this, monitoring would be a key component to see how it holds up with foot traffic, and how well it establishes, and how much of an assistance it is as far as stability. Because right about where you started, right at the front of those houses, that's where in your photos the grade changes a little bit, and there starts to be a divot in the middle where people have worn it down. let's see. So you had said in the past, I mean, we did authorize the 30-foot wide Trex boardwalk. I quickly looked at the previous permit. I didn't see that Moby mats were part of that permit.
It wasn't part of the old permit, it was part of what we did this summer
Okay,
for, and I guess it wound up as an administrative review.
yes, I was like, I know we permitted this,
Right,
okay,
right.
for a temporary fix until you got to this point.
Just for this season.
Thank you for reminding me of that. So you are proposing, and I made an error in my site summary. I said 60 inches wide, it's not, it's 48 inches wide. So most of what you proposed meets our 4-foot width. And regardless of whether it's public, private, association, we do try to stick to that 4-foot width to stay consistent. I do have a little bit of concern that, it is a new structure in a dune. Dune's one of the most protected resources, as we know that there are, and you're not supposed to affect the movement or composition of the dune. Seeing as you already have a 30-inch wide one, and so that's just a little bit more on each side. I don't know if there's going to be much more of an additional impact. Had this come in front of us now, before you did anything, a raised boardwalk would be something that we would certainly be talking about as opposed to an on-grade boardwalk. But we've already permitted an on-grade boardwalk.
Yeah, it appears that the existing boardwalk, and you can see in the pictures, has not substantially altered the topography.
Right.
In the back dune. I think what's happening is that behind
Yeah.
the primary dune, there really isn't much movement going on
There's not,
on a
yeah.
general basis. And
I agree with you. I don't think it's altered the movement of the dune, except for potentially right at that primary dune where they would, in order to get the 5-foot wide Moby mat in, you're gonna have to carve out even a little bit more to install it. I would say it probably does alter the vegetative cover of the dune, where there probably would have been vegetation, there's not because of the mat, but it also keeps people on a path. So, and then the Moby mat, I think that's gonna, be continuous effort to maintain. That sand moves around, as you know, very readily down there. So effort to maintain it so it stays passable. So when you go out there, the primary dune by the water, it's this little hummock, and then that's very dynamic. And then once you get behind it, it's dune sediments, and there's blowing around, and there's vegetation, but it doesn't move too much. So in general, I'm in favor of this, but I would like to see more of an effort, maybe if we hear guidance from Natural Heritage about mitigation for it, because in-lieu fees should only be used as a last-ditch effort when there's no other opportunity to do that. And I do see some human impacts in those dunes. It doesn't have to be right here. It could also be in another, on the association property. But there are some dune impacts that are occurring due to pedestrian access where they shouldn't be. I know that NHESP's sometimes not wanting some plantings, but I've also seen them be in favor of, in an area that's denuded, to maybe not densely replant it, but sparsely plant it to let it try to naturalize. So I think it's we have to wait anyways, worth them. I'd rather see you mitigate in that fashion rather than ask to use the wetlands revolving account. My question I have is really about the dune or not the dune, the mean high water. When we went out there the other day, the proposed end of your Moby mats was well below the extreme high water line. We've had some really extreme tides this week, so I wouldn't want to see the edge get into the water. I would recommend bringing it back a little bit, the seaward edge of your Moby mat, because I think you're going to have more interaction with the water than what you may be seeing. and then I'm looking at your numbers, so mean high water elevation 1.4, where are you getting that? Because when I look at, tide data, it's higher than that.
Data, yeah, it's, the surveyor's responsible for that.
Yeah, I'm seeing average tides more towards the 3.5 foot line, which is, and then, so the extreme high water would be, like what we saw the other day, well
What
into
What
there.
he had shown on the plan was a rack line at elevation 4.4.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so we ended the mats at elevation 5, rather than use, some storm tide.
Yeah.
That is about spring high water. We can pull that
Yeah.
back somewhat.
We didn't, we just had a high tide. We didn't have a storm. Yes, it was a moon high tide, but
Well, this time of year, it won't be in anyway, which is when we're apt to get those tides.
Right.
The other thing that's happening here is that this beach has been accreting because of the extension
The
of
jetty.
the jetty at the entrance to Allen's Harbor.
yeah.
It looks like that jetty is almost full now, but it's not gonna, it's probably going to maintain itself at its present location rather than become eroded on a regular basis, so.
Just
But
something to
we can
look
bring
at
that back
about,
another
and I'm happy to
half a
meet
foot.
you out there. We don't want to see it in the water. I'm sure you don't want to see it in the water. It just deteriorates it faster and makes a mess, so. I don't have any more comments for now. I definitely want to hear what Heritage has to say about this proposal and want to hear what you folks have to say.
Okay, Mark?
To me, it sounds pretty well thought out. I think it covers a multitude of issues. I think it serves everybody pretty well. Short of a little bit of mitigation, I would offer support to it.
Thank you. Jim?
I have no further comments.
I
Alan?
feel the same way as Mark. I have no issues with it. I think it's needed, it's necessary, it's part of the landscape that's been down there, and I think they're trying to do everything that they're in line with the code and the law, and I'm in support of it.
Wayne?
No comment.
So I have a couple comments and questions. One is about the shoreward section with the matrix that you're talking about. Seems to me like a good idea. I would be perfectly in favor of that, even if you don't know quite what the outcome is. If it's an unknown to us, to the commission, seems to me it's a good idea to try something new from time to time, as long as we include a condition that requires you guys to fix it if it turns out to be failing. If the grass doesn't grow, I think we should I would be in favor of accepting that part of the proposal and just including a condition in the order of conditions that makes sure it gets addressed if it's a problem. The other thing that I have a little bit of a problem with is just what's happening at the, what you call the primary dune there. And when we were out there, I understood that the Moby-Mat was just going from the seaward toe of the dune, but there isn't much of that. But the way you've described it, and the way I see it is in a plan, the Moby-Map goes through that whole
Primary
Hang
dune.
on.
The cut
whatever you
in the,
wanna call
yeah,
it.
the cut in the dune.
the cut in the dune. And one of my questions is, you're gonna be taking it up off-season, which is, it's gonna be up for 6 months.
Yeah.
When it's blowing sand all over the place out of there. And presumably, the that is going to fill in substantially over the course of almost any typical winter. And so I don't quite understand. I guess I wouldn't be in favor of you guys digging out to reach the elevation that it is even currently at in the spring when you come out to put the Moby mat down. On the other hand, if that thing fills in substantially, there's quite a steep face on the front of that dune, and I don't quite get how just rolling the Moby map out over a dune that is trying desperately to fill in and return to its natural state, how that's gonna be good for anybody trying to, and particularly you're trying to move towards ADA accessibility, but someone with a wheelchair or just has unsure footing coming down the steep face of a dune is gonna have a problem there, I would think. So, and then whoever is maintaining it, which is not gonna be you, it's gonna be somebody else, they're gonna be out there in Maine trying to decide how to deal with it. And again, I wouldn't be in favor of just saying, okay, well, you can just continue maintaining that canyon there. So I'm a little perplexed about how we deal with that, how you should deal with that, because you've got some conflicting requirements here.
We can certainly provide you with a protocol, but the reason for that cut being there is the unregulated foot traffic. And the purpose of the Moby mat is to sort of spread the weight to prevent that from cutting down anymore. I suppose it is possible that if the cut in that dune filled in substantially over the winter, and it was very steep, that we might be back to request the addition of some beach sand on the back side to flatten that back slope a little bit. But in general, I think it will probably take care of itself. And if it's left in the winter, you're gonna find the slope modulating a little bit because nature abhors those irregularities.
I have a quick question. I'm going to put the people from the association on the spot here a little bit, because you've been maintaining this for many years. So right now you have a boardwalk, and the boardwalk goes over that cut area that you're saying, and that's going to be covered by a Moby mat. So the boardwalk is, in that location, is proposed to stay. Everything is going to be over that. So at least you have kind of that baseline, like where the boardwalk is now, that's as low as you're going to go. But I'm curious now about what your maintenance is like in the springtime when everybody comes back, and I know people use it over the winter and walk down there, but what is the maintenance like in the springtime? Because it's not all that different to go from a Trex to a Moby mat. What do you experience as far as maintenance? What blows in? How much work is it to get that back down? If you wouldn't mind coming to the mic and just say who you are. Sure. Thank you.
My name is Bill Lionetta, and I also have Ed Saras here from the association. And both of us have been involved in doing some of the maintenance down there in the spring and during the summer to maintain the Trex as well as the Moby mats. And I've been more involved in the Moby mats this past year. So one of the things in the spring is that end that we're talking about in the primary dune does tend to fill in.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I've been concerned about is the fact that that dune is moving back, which none of us want to see happen.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of doing this as you go landward. And so the Moby mats this year, what we did when you gave us the permit to do it temporarily, we laid it just on the sand. In the
Right.
past, we were trying to get back down to the Trex, and that really did this, and we're trying to get away from that. So at least for what's there right now, laying the Moby mat on there works really well, except when you get down, because the mats, actually you can push it down into the vegetation or to the, just right up to the vegetation. It works pretty well. The biggest problem is when you have too steep of a slope, which is why we're asking for the addition of, extending the moby mats. So when you get down like this, and the moby mat ends here, and people step off the edge, they push the sand away from here, then the people with mobility problems, it works for about 2 days for them. And then when they go to step off, they got this big step that goes down, and they can't keep themselves stable. So when I've looked at how other people that use moby mats do, they kind of have a long run out so you can reduce that slope. So unless they, as John mentioned, unless the dune gets really high, laying the moby mats on top of that I think is going to work fairly well. It does filter the sand, so when people walk up and they have sand on their feet or they kick sand onto it, it filters down through. One of the problems that we do have is people naturally want to walk off the edge. In other words, they don't want to walk to the end of the mat, they like to walk off the edge. If I'm coming over there, why do I need to walk there? I can just walk there. And so that's one of the things. So I actually piled up some of the seaweeds just to keep people off the edge to see if that would do it. So that is one of the things I have a concern about is how we're going to keep people on there. And at some point, we may have to talk to you about some type of, snow fences, anything to keep people from walking off the edge. Because parents, look, the kids want to go out and play and they want to run up on there. And it's like we're on the vegetation, we're trying to keep them off of it. But the mats do a pretty good job, but you do have to run it out. You can't just end it at the end of the slope.
Yep.
And so we'd like to get away from having to push any sand off the tracks. The one thing I'll say, the rest of the pathway, once you get beyond the primary dune, Ed, I don't think there's been, I don't remember seeing anything on the rest of the tracks up there. It stays very clean. We haven't had to do anything
Yeah.
getting ready for the spring.
Yeah.
It's just that section in the primary dune.
So what we saw there yesterday was not the way it was this summer. That is, you've already taken up the Moby mat that you put down. What we saw, which I guess I didn't quite digest that either, so you had the Trex there, which is mostly covered with sand right now.
That's correct.
And the Moby mat was on top of all that, including
Yeah.
the sand.
Yeah,
And you're anticipating, so, but the Moby mat is 18 inches wider, no, it's 5 feet, so it's
1
it's
foot.
whatever, it's 30 inches wider than the existing Trex that's there right now, so it, but the sand was filling in almost to the 30-inch Trex.
yeah,
There.
absolutely it was.
So when you put the Moby mat down there, it slopes up like
No,
this?
what happened was this year we left the sand that built up. And then all we had to do to put the Moby mat down, so if you had some unevenness in the sand, just a small, you have to get it level side to side. And that's all we did was level it side to side. We didn't dig down, there's about 1.5 foot down to some of the tracks there right now. And so all we did was level the top and just lay the mat right over it. And that's what we're expecting to do each year. And that's what Arlene was starting to mention. If it really got up high, then it would be an issue. But it's got to go quite a ways before it gets up to all of that, because it'll start to fill on the backside. Because typically, it wants to do its natural thing. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, thank you. I just have one other thing to say, which is a little off topic, but I'm gonna say it anyway, which is more or less a repeat of what I said about the Fort Chase Street thing. I didn't get a chance to look at any of the properties around this, because the fencing is so high that you can't see the lawns, but looking at things from Google Earth, it's clear, again, they're very green lawns, presumably many, maybe most, maybe all of the properties that are owned by the 67 families that have access here, they're putting stuff on their lawns they shouldn't be, regardless of, the jurisdiction we have. I just strongly encourage the homeowners, who get the advantage of this beach when they fertilize their lawns, when they dump herbicides on their lawns, it all ends up in Nantucket Sound, and it degrades the water quality, costs taxpayers money. It's just a big problem. I wish that you would communicate this message. Well, you are an association member, so please communicate this to your entire membership. Encourage them to go natural with their lawns. And
And I can help. I'm more than happy to offer guidance, products that can, different grass products, different, that require so much less, but still meet the aesthetic that people are driving for. So I've talked to many associations about this.
Well, we have an annual meeting at the beginning of July, so maybe that's,
I'd be happy to help.
maybe that's something we can arrange for.
Get a hold of me, like a month or two in advance.
thank you. I don't have anything for,
We have to continue. Do we want to try for the 2 weeks to see if we get a response from Heritage in that time? They've been taking their full 60 days, so.
Well, let's try it.
Okay.
I'll keep my fingers crossed, and if
Yep.
not, we'll continue it again.
Okay, with that in mind, I will make a motion that we continue the public hearing on the notice of intent for Allen Harbor Beach Association off Dunes Road, map 5, parcel Y1, SE 32-2545, to our meeting of November 15th, 2023.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Five and oh.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have request for an extension to the order of conditions for 47 North Road, map 19, parcel S2, SE 32-2428 for bulkhead repair. Do we have someone online who's an advocate, or do you want to open this, Amy?
I'll announce it, but Stephanie Sequin from Ryder and Wilcox, and it looks like Mr. Smith, the homeowner, are on virtually. So just to bring the commission up to speed real quick, you had wanted Mr. Smith to be present, and he is, and then you had some questions of Lars Jensen, his engineer from Inghouse, which I did get response to, and I put them in your site summary about why geotechnical borings are required now versus before. Just so the commission is aware, before I turn it over to Mr. Smith and Stephanie, I did hear from Mr. Smith that it is okay if we bring a third-party engineer out to the site. He would just like 2 days' notice and to be there, and we're planning on doing next Wednesday, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is a low tide. I reached out to 3 companies that I knew had this type of engineering on staff and got responses from 2 that they were interested to help, just to ensure that there's not a risk to public interest or to the resource areas as a result of the situation there. So thank you, Mr. Smith, for that. And I think one of the things we're looking for is additional updates from Mr. Smith on where he stands as far as retaining the geotechnical engineering, if that's been scheduled yet to do the borings, what we're looking at in terms of timeline for a plan, et cetera. So I will leave it at that.
Mr. Smith or Ms. Sequin?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we have retained a company to handle it, and they have dealt with the drilling company that's gonna do it, and they said it's gonna be done within 2 weeks. That was as of Tuesday of this week.
That's the boring, Mr. Smith, the testing?
That's the geo stuff that needs to be done, so the structural engineer knows how to deal with the pile depth and width and all his technical stuff. As soon as that's done, then he can create his plan and we can move forward from there. I've also already spoken with, and my engineer is dealing with the firm that we want to hire to do the actual job, and they have scheduled some time for us. As soon as we have permission, they will get it to it as soon as they possibly can. And for me, the sooner the better for any of it, because obviously it's my house that's in jeopardy here.
I would just ask, and I spoke with Lars about this today, that when you have a definite date for those borings, please let me know, because it's gonna be quite the neighborhood interest, and I'm sure I'll get a bunch of calls, so I just wanna be proactive about it, so I can let a few people know when this is gonna be happening and what it's for.
Yeah, Amy, I'll let you know as soon as I know.
Yep.
I guess it's all up to the well driller as to when he can move in. And I'm assuming I know a couple days ahead of time, and I'll let you know.
Thank you. So this is still on our agenda as an extension, just to let the commission know they have requested initially a 3-year extension. I'm inclined to go less than that, with a 6 months with monthly progress updates.
When is the expiration?
The expiration, Stephanie, do you have that handy? It's November. It is November.
No, November 20th. November 20th of this year. And we didn't ask, did you say a 3-year extension?
I thought you did. I apologize
Oh,
if
if
I'm
I
wrong.
did, no, we do not need a 3-year extension by any means, no. 6 months would be great.
Okay. Oh, I think so. You asked for a year. My apologize. In your letter from
Okay.
August, so that's my mistake. I'm sorry.
And I am totally in agreement with that. The sooner the better.
Okay. So Wayne,
Isn't really much we can do till they get those test borings done, and then we'll find out what's gonna happen, and they come in with a plan to fix the wall. You know, I'm in agreement with doing it, and 6 months is definitely a max. I wouldn't go any more than that.
Yeah, I have no further comments. I agree with Wayne that 6 months should be the maximum extension that we grant them at this point.
thank you.
I agree with that as well.
Okay, so well, we'll start with the extension. I prefer not to vote on any extension. I would prefer to wait until we have positive dates, if at all possible. Is there any particular reason why we have to grant an extension today as opposed to as late as November 15th?
We could actually go later, now that I'm thinking about it, because their request came in prior to, so it's the commission's, doing by prolonging this. So their request to extend came in before their expiration date. So we don't have to vote on it tonight. It's as long as it stays on your agenda, it stays on our radar, it is not, it's still open.
Amy, could you refresh my memory? When is the current order of conditions?
Stephanie had said November 20th of this year.
Okay, so in other words, we could wait until our next meeting on November 15th.
Hopefully by that time, Mr. Smith had mentioned that his contractor had said the borings would be done within the next 2 weeks. I mean, we should have that at that time. Or at least should have been done or is well underway. So it's your purview. My recommendation was still, even if you offered the extension now, I would still recommend with the caveat that there are monthly updates.
Okay, I guess, I also just want to comment that honestly, I still don't understand the explanation for why the borings weren't done initially. The explanation that you got from the Lars
Lars,
still doesn't make any sense to me.
let me read it again, because when we talked about it, it made sense to me.
I still don't get it, it's kind of immaterial because either way, it's gotta be done now, apparently. So I don't know, whatever the other commissioners think best. I just think we need to keep the pressure on. I understand Mr. Smith wants to get this done quickly as well. But I think we need to keep the pressure on here as well, so. I'm not gonna make a motion, someone else can make a motion one way or the other, all we're doing here is either voting to extend or not.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts?
I've got one. If the work is gonna go ahead, it's gonna have to, you're gonna have to have an extension regardless. If we don't grant the extension, they can't do the work, right?
Well, so they can do the borings, because that's an exempted activity under the Act, under exploratory borings, in order to prepare a plan. Whatever is determined, they're gonna be filing either an amendment or a new application to repair or completely replace that bulkhead. Because the methodology is gonna be different, you're gonna need to condition it differently. So they have to come back to you for approval of whatever their solution is.
So that'll be a brand-new filing
It
regardless.
depends. It does depend on and I don't know what the scope of work is gonna be, because they haven't done the testing yet.
Okay, so Amy, just to clarify in my mind, if we don't approve the extension,
Mhm.
they can still proceed with the borings and develop their plan.
Yep.
But once they develop the plan, they would then have to come back to us for.
At least an amendment.
Well,
if not, a new
If
filing.
we don't approve the extension, then the order of conditions expires.
Right.
And therefore.
You'll have to eventually do that.
Well, we would have to eventually review whatever their plan was, but we could review it as a new filing. Because the order of conditions will have expired and therefore no longer exist.
Can I chime in?
Please do.
Yes.
As long as the current order is valid, we can submit a request for an amended order of conditions. We can submit, we could submit a request for a plan change, which, it's probably not likely to happen, but once the order expires, whatever has to be done here is going to require a new notice of intent, and we're just trying to avoid that additional paperwork.
Okay, yeah, and another reason to delay.
Yeah, and more importantly in that is time.
Time,
Yes,
Because if we go to do-
I agree.
Yeah, we're talking
So-
about however long it takes to go through the process.
Yep.
And the sooner we get this thing solved, the better for everyone, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. There are no other comments? I can proceed with the motion.
Please do.
Okay, I will move that we approve an extension to the order of conditions for 47 North Road, parcel 19, or, I'm sorry, map 19, parcel S2, SE 32-2428, with the condition of, for a period of 6 months, with the condition that the commission receive monthly progress reports from the applicant.
Second.
Discussion.
I recommend that you make it concrete as to what, yes, monthly reports, but I would suggest that you say it's for the first meeting of every month. Just
I
so
would-
we
I would
put that
accept-
on our schedule.
Yeah, I would accept that amendment to my motion.
So that will be an agenda item.
It will be an agenda item on the first meeting of every month.
Okay. You accept that,
Yes, I accept that.
Alan? You seconded? Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So can I just get the date of when we will be back before you? December something?
Yeah, the first, hold on, let me look at the calendar. And it's for an update. It'll be December 6th.
Okay. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next we have a request for a certificate of compliance for 140 Clearwater Road, map 73, parcel S 110 SE 32-1539 for the installation of a septic system.
This was a septic install that happened in the 90s. The owners are selling, and this is a hindrance on the deed. We did check with the health department and found this to be installed according to plan, and we would recommend a certificate of compliance.
I'll make a motion, we, for 140 Clearwater Road, map 73, parcel S110, SE number 32-1539, that we issue a certificate of compliance.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. So, discussion possible vote on 2024 hearing schedule.
Leisha gave you a brand-new one. John picked up a little error, and we fixed that with a date. I think it was in February. So if you haven't already, it's in what we gave you tonight. Take a look at it. There are going to be a couple of Thursdays just because of, and you don't need to worry about filing deadlines, so don't worry about the right column. That's for us. Just look at the left column. Make sure everything looks good to you. We bump to Thursdays because if there's a Monday holiday, the selectmen will bump to Tuesday. That'll bump Wednesday things that were supposed to be Tuesday to Wednesday. So personally, I kind of like Thursday meetings, but the next day's Friday.
August 21 might be a problem, my daughter's getting married.
Well, that's nice.
Yes. So I probably won't be here.
That's fine. I suppose. But
We won't insist.
as long as they look okay to you,
Yeah,
like
I
we
don't-
did it right.
I don't see any problem.
Yeah.
So you would have to, so what you do is vote to adopt this as your schedule for 2024, so we can get it up on the town website, reserve the room, all that jazz. And so we can, because the consultants are gonna start wanting to know the deadlines for the January meeting very soon.
I would move to adopt that schedule as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Lovely.
Minutes. What's the last thing?
I have John sent in some edits for the minutes, and I at least have them on my copy. You probably have them on yours too. I'm not sure if in the packet of stuff that was on your table today, there was a copy of those or not.
I did
The
not
little
see-
things.
They may have just been, they weren't substantive corrections to the minutes, just grammatical or stuff like that, so.
So I'm fine with the minutes. Anyone else?
No.
Still reviewing?
All set.
Okay, if everybody's all set, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of our meeting of October 18th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, okay. We have anything else, Amy?
Yes, we do. I sent you an email yesterday, and I've already put it in Dropbox. We had the bid opening for the Herring River Study RFP yesterday. There were 3 bids, three packages. Because it's anticipated that this work is gonna be over 50,000, it's sealed bids, so we don't look at the money until after we choose who we believe is the most qualified to do the work. So on our agenda for next time is to review those. One of them was missing some very basic information, so both myself and the assistant town administrator took that one out of the running. So there are 2 complete proposals for you in Dropbox to review. I also gave you, I haven't read them, I haven't really sat down with them, but I've glanced through them to make sure they checked all the boxes, at least for the most important things that we need. And they both click our highly advantageous character rating that we have to go by here when we rate projects in town. So use that spreadsheet when you're evaluating them so we can have a good conversation about the pros and cons of each at our next meeting. Ultimately, I hope to, at the end of the meeting, next meeting, to have a recommendation from you as to which company you want to go with, and we give that to the Board of Selectmen, who ultimately makes the decision. And also, we have the 9 and 11 Herring Run dock come in, we have the Beach Association coming back, but we don't have any new hearings. So I'm gonna push really hard to try to get a final draft of the Bell's Neck Land Management Plan to discuss also at the next meeting while we had a new person in my absence start, Kalia Trudeau. She is our part-time executive assistant, so she's learning really quickly, and she's going to be able to help catch us up with minutes and do administrative tasks, so I can focus on projects more. And Leisha we can do more field work, more review, and not be tied to some of the administrative tasks, so we're getting there. Can't
Good
think of
question on those bid things. If you choose, say, Company A, and then when you open them up and find out that their bid is ridiculously
Correct.
high,
Yep.
you automatically go to B?
Well, you can open B to see if it's equally as ridiculously high. Keep
But
in
if
mind that we have a fixed budget at this point. We
But
have about,
if B comes in the ballpark of money,
Yeah.
you'll take them instead of A?
you can only open B if A is so far out of whack that we could not afford it.
That's a percentage, balanced against what the budget is?
Our budget is, so we have about 80 grand.
Yeah. So they
We,
come in at 140,
we-
that's wacko. But if they come in at 85, you still would go with them?
I would talk with administration on how we can get it done.
And without looking at B's number?
That I don't know. It's not my,
B
if it's
might be
close,
78,000
right.
and save us some money, maybe.
And the outcome could honestly be that you're split on it, but you feel both are qualified.
Yeah.
But you kind of ultimately, the way procurement procedure is you gotta pick one, and you open that one. And if it's ballpark, then you go with it, because that's your first choice as far as qualifications. When it's above 50 grand, this is how we how we have to do it.
Where's the competitive bid come into that? That doesn't make any sense at all.
You're going
You're
automatically
taking away the
going to the
competition
higher
right
guy.
away, that, it just.
Because
doesn't-
your decision should not be based on money.
Somebody has to.
I understand that, but that was what was told to me.
I'd like some clarification on that, because I don't buy it.
No, I don't either. That's not how bidding works.
No, it's not.
Who conveyed that knowledge to you?
Administration. I can clarify as to
yeah.
why and get an explanation. I'll get as to why that has to be our practice. And it may be very different in the municipal world versus private sector. I don't know, so.
That's probably the
Well, I
answer
suspect
right
it is,
there.
but 1 and 1 is still 2. I don't care who's.
I
doing
get it.
That's right.
We're supposed to
Spend as much money
Choose-
as possible.
choose who is the most qualified, who has the best proposal, who you think can do the job the best. And if that's out of whack with our budget, then we can look at the second one.
And if they're, but the question here is, if the two proposals are within spitting distance of each other in terms of their quality without considering the money, there's no way then, what you're saying is there's no way to decide to go for one because it's less expensive.
I will check on that. I don't have a concrete answer.
I hope that's not the way everything is run in the town, because it's why it's costing us a fortune.
Yeah,
That's
I would really
that's
like to see some
ridiculous.
clarification on this whole matter.
Yeah,
'cause this
really.
Just doesn't make sense to me
Mhm.
a
No.
little bit.
Well, we've got 2 weeks to figure it out, so let me
Okay.
try to get you some clarification. In the meantime, happy reading.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It's, they're good. From the skim that I gave them, and I know both companies. The third company we did not know and are kind of new to this type of work. But one we see frequently, it's a different arm of them, and another one helped, which you'll see, hasn't done anything recently, but helped with the Muddy Creek Bridge redesign. So,
Okay.
both have good qualifications and put together complete proposals, so.
On another matter, I was going up Bell's Neck Road the other day, and I noticed that the highway department, I'm assuming some, has dumped a bunch of T-base up there in different piles, obviously to use to fix the road up. Now, the only thing about T-base is, I don't know how many you folks understand where it comes from. It is ground up asphalt. When they grind up roads, that's where it comes from. And there are a lot of fines in there, which is particles of asphalt and bigger particles of asphalt. And should we be putting that in a conservation area? Then we should tell the highway department to get it the hell out of there and bring in dense grade, 3/4 inch dense grade that they buy from Tilcon or wherever. But asphalt should not be there.
So, when the highway department or any town department decides they're gonna work in the buffer zone to a resource area, don't they need to talk to you first?
Yeah, so they have, it's been a historic practice for them down there for a very long time to use T-base. Not saying that it's correct. They have a maintenance permit with a road maintenance permit with conservation. It doesn't get into the nitty-gritty of, what's being used at the Bell's Neck, but I think it's because of past practice, but it's not saying that it has to stay that way. I have expressed my concern over using T-base in the past and didn't get satisfactory answers as to other materials. So maybe it's a discussion we have with them about what other possibilities there are. They'll probably bring up, cost, et cetera, but cost doesn't matter to us.
No.
But I agree with you, particularly in the areas that are closest to the reservoir, to the river,
Yeah.
that it shouldn't be used. Could it potentially be used on some of the higher areas? Maybe,
I
but,
noticed that up on the, when you're headed towards the bridge there,
Yeah.
going up from north to south, where it goes over the hump of that high spot there,
Yeah.
that it's all washed out and it's washing right down into the river.
I know.
So,
We can have a
Question.
discussion with them.
Yeah,
Question for you guys about T-base.
yes.
It's asphalt, it's a matrix of whatever, stone of one sort or another, and residual hydrocarbons, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so when you get to the point of having ground it down, turned it into whatever it becomes, yeah, are there still like volatiles, are there still things in there that can leach, aside from the fines that you're talking about? Are there
Sure.
things gonna leach out some hydrocarbons that are gonna
Sure.
leach out and then get into the water
You
as well?
probably wouldn't see like an oil sheen or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Uh-huh.
But all those fine particles of asphalt, that's asphalt. That's bituminous concrete, asphalt. Plus, they also made a waterway right there at where North Road comes down and meets Bell's Neck. They took a machine that's been there for a long time, but they freshened it up because I noticed where all that stuff is running right down into a waterway that's going right into that swamp.
Yeah, we've told them they cannot be pushing stuff into
Which
the
they did.
swamps, which they're, so I had them put up those fences, remove the piles of stone that had been deteriorating at the entrance of trails. They put up those wooden
Mm-hmm.
fences, that was good,
Yeah.
but then they did this too.
Yeah. Well, they need a cease and desist, what they need, stop doing
Yeah,
it.
I would agree. I think they need
Heck with
some
conversation,
redirection. And,
just Stop.
I mean, I understand why they put that waterway there. I mean, if you're grading that road with a loader, you know as well as I do why they did that.
Well, the
Yeah.
path of least resistance, but you
Right.
don't want all that asphalt running into that swamp.
No.
Absolutely. There's a way to deter it, and that step needs to be taken. This goes back to the conversation we had about reconstructing that road. We could never seem to get that project off the ground. You know, but I think that should be a very important part of the land management plan out there.
So
Um,
it's not lost because it's part of the low-lying road study that DPW has contracted out to have done as part of our flood requirements, but they're in terms of improvements to low-lying roads that are in flood zones, which that one is. So,
Do you happen to know, I don't know anything about that issue.
yeah.
But do you know where that stands and where are we in that list of possibilities?
I know that the study is happening. In terms of, we haven't gotten results from that. I can ask Lincoln about the low-lying road study.
So has there been any process in that study for affected parties to have input into the study? It's like typically if you're doing a thing like that in an organization, there should be an attempt to have, I guess, stakeholders is the right term. Have
Yes.
stakeholders at least have a conversation with whoever is doing the study to make sure that whatever issues need to be covered get covered.
I don't think we're at that point for I think it was just an initial assessment right now, because they contacted me to ensure that they captured all the low-lying roads and problem areas in the town, and I added a few to them, so they came up with, they're just past the list stage right now.
So it's not extreme siloing, they've already consulted you, so.
Just in terms of making sure that all the ones that they are supposed to be looking at have been looked at, and I add basically anything in a flood zone, but also ponds, big ponds, even Long Pond, even though it's not coastal, really, it has a flood zone to it. It has areas of contribution because it's such a big water body, so there's low-lying areas around the pond that that should also be looked at, as well as parking areas. But, yeah, we I'll ask Lincoln where it stands, but probably about 2 months ago, they asked me for my input to make sure that they had captured the low-lying road areas in the town. The highway generated it, but they asked me to look at it.
Another issue that I noticed, and these, we have a lot of catch basins in low areas.
Yes.
They're there for a reason, to catch the water as it comes down.
Hmm.
How much authority do we have to stop that? A case in point is up on Main Street where they had the washout during that, down Heron River. Now, even though they patched it up, but all that stuff went down in the river, all that sand that washed out, everything,
Yeah.
it went in the river.
Yeah,
All right, now,
I was
If
down
there's-
there. I
if-
was there yesterday.
yeah, if there's say an accident of vehicles, there's gasoline or motor oil or fuel oil, anywhere near Victor Ryder's old place, Lombard's place, the fire chief's place up there, it's all gonna run right down into the river. Why can't we require the town to raise that up and to an elevation that would make the water go over to, there's a little piece of land right over there next to Lombard's house that they could put one of those, I don't know how, they'd have to buy it or whatever, but then they could put a retention pond in there and bring that drainage water into that area there. So if they did have a problem, it would filter into that sand there and not go directly into the river.
It
And
can be.
there are a lot of those there, that, I
Yep.
noticed around town, every time I see one of those, I stop usually and I'll look to see if there's an outfall pipe.
Yeah.
And most of them have an outfall pipe that go right into a ditch or into a river or a wetland.
Yep.
We had
So-
that same conversation about all the drain pipe that runs
Oh,
down
down
dumps into
28,
Wishmaaba.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The
That
number I
hasn't
heard was
changed.
1,700 feet of drainage pipe.
Yeah, it goes all the way from the bank up on Pilgrim,
Yeah.
the church.
Yeah.
That's, of course, that's state, that's a different fight, but, we're the town,
Right.
we can
So you can
force the town to
certainly,
do it.
I think the way to start it is, because we all know nothing's gonna happen tomorrow with it. But,
Yeah.
because we all, financially planning for if we were to change it from a catch basin to reroute it someplace else, that takes funding, so.
Sure.
We can start the conversation about these things, so we can get it in a 5 or 10-year plan
Yeah.
to work towards it. If you have to ask for it like that in terms of it's not something that you have to find the money today, this fiscal year, but it's a list of things to work towards, to put into a capital plan.
Now, we work to, and they're on a priority schedule,
I believe,
should be.
yeah. So we can-
Pollution of Heron River would be pretty top on the list of priorities, I believe,
So when I was out on vacation, they had a major washout there,
Yeah.
and they patched it. He had me over there yesterday, because they wanted to do additional T-base, and I said no. I said you could, because the road had actually started to break off.
Where is this?
At the Main Street and Queen Anne Road,
It was a very low spot there, right?
Yeah.
yes. So the upper reaches of the Herring River go underneath there, and all the water pours down the road there. They've had washouts in the past. It even eclipsed the overflow that they had put in the bypass. And they had they had more T-base, and I said no, because you could see it eroding into the river, or down the slope towards the river. So I said just to use fill, but that has a little bit of compaction and grit to it, nothing, but something that's natural. They have bank sand that has a little bit more, not hardener, but it's not clay, but it sticks together better, basically. It's not just sand, it's not just plain bank sand. And I said, natural, it has to be natural materials. And then they were gonna add that in, because it's an immediate, it's a public safety hazard.
Yeah,
So they
holes
have
go
to
in.
do it. So I said, the short term, bring that in, mat it, try to seed it, at least to get something to grow. If you don't mat it, you put sand there, it's just gonna wash. So mat it and stake it down, seed it as a temporary fix. Well, because that whole wall, there's a wall there with the pipe through it, and the wall's not long enough either. So it's eroding around, the water's from the road is eroding around the wall down into the river. Take a ride when you get a chance. It's hard to find a place to park, but
Yeah, check it out.
I had one other question.
mhm.
Main Street Tech School, anything? So.
Nothing that I've heard.
Crickets?
I'm sorry,
Sure,
no,
sure.
not crickets. I'm sorry, I actually got an email from Mike McCaskill
Good.
2 days ago with an updated, I think it's this week anyway, with an updated, the latest revision of the draft intermunicipal.
Good.
Which I actually went through the changes. It's not like a wholesale complete rewrite or anything like that. It is a lot more lawyer's language, protecting mostly the tech school's interests, but to me, nothing, it's just somebody trying to imagine every possible bad thing that could ever happen and write contingencies into the
Yeah.
contract for all those bad possible
That's what they
things.
call lawyers, deal killers.
Right, most of which seem unlikely to me. There is some language in there about consulting with the Conservation Commission, which is new language, which, that's good. And I
Is that email gonna be available to us?
I actually, it has to be, there has to be a conversation
Yeah.
with the whole committee, the whole commission. And what Mike has been talking about since whenever, way earlier in the year, is having a joint meeting
Yeah.
with the select board and the Conservation Commission, but of course, people would have to have that thing in their hand sufficiently before such a meeting, so,
Yes.
because you can't, sitting there, probably there would be lawyers stepping through whatever's in there, but, you can't digest all that in a sitting, so I actually need to talk to Mike. I do need to talk to him tomorrow, or the next day.
Yeah, I wanna see a copy of it.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
it was sent to me, I really
Yeah, right,
just
you're the
need,
liaison, I certainly
I need
understand.
to just clear it all.
Unless we're getting close to the parties being in somewhat agreement with it, they may be reticent to share it too much publicly yet, but,
Not publicly, but to this
yeah.
commission.
Yeah, it seemed to me that it's appropriate that we all get a crack to read it and at
Absolutely.
least digest it.
Yeah. That's been my position all along, and
Okay.
Mike has agreed with that. We just haven't gotten there yet, for whatever reason.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Anything else? Okay,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting of, November 1st?
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye,
thank you
Kevin.
all.
Did you get all of these, Wayne?
I did, I signed them all.
Thought there was one, maybe not.